Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're just letting everyone land, getting cozy, grabbing whatever you might need, just having a little song to drop in, a couple minutes. Just letting the stress of your day start to melt away. Happy Friday, y'all. Not that it's much different than any other day these days. Yet for me, I am still working full days, so it is feels good to me to be a Friday. All right, so as we get rolling here, just welcoming all of you lovely peeps for joining. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a overview of what we're going to do, and then we can get rolling. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Testa, and I am a sex and relationship coach, as well as a breathwork facilitator and podcast host and mom and wife, and have been, you know, riding the waves of this crazy time like everyone. And so my intention for the call tonight is just to have an opportunity to connect and share some tools that we have found really helpful and that may support you, as well as at the end, I want to walk you through a connection practice that you can do if your partner is with you. And if not, you can just take this to them. I'm going to record. Good, we are recording for those who weren't able to come live that wanted to catch the replay. So if there's anything, if you have a question or you don't want anything to be shared in the replay, just let me know and I'll make sure to stop the recording during that part. Otherwise, if you're okay with it, then we will leave it in because I'm sure if you have a question, there's probably others that have the same question or that might be going through the same thing. And I know for us, we have our ups and downs like everyone. When we're stuck together, this is actually our fourth week of being stuck together because before school shut down, my husband was sick and Mimi was sick, my daughter, and so we had a couple of weeks of already being in the house. And then we are now forced to be in the house. So thankfully, we kind of are used to it. And it's definitely a challenge. So I'm going to walk you through 5 little things that have been helpful. And if you have questions, just FYI, you can pop them in the Q&A and you can ask them anonymously there too if you'd like, or you can always share in the chat at the bottom if you have any questions. And we will get rolling. So, for those of you out there that might be feeling a little stir crazy, I know that's definitely the case around here. You're probably going to hear some random screams and maybe an interruption or two because my husband has agreed to entertain our daughter for a little bit. And hopefully, she'll stay up there. But they're young and they don't always follow the rules. So just beware. And so the number one thing, I'll start with the first thing. So for very important, and this is not always easy to do because during these stressful times, our nervous systems are on high alert because of all that's going on. There's fear. There's definitely some really hard, sad things happening. The economy is in an upturn. People are losing their jobs. People are getting sick. People are dying. I mean, there's very serious, heavy things happening. So it's understandable that our nervous systems would be all over the place. And when you are in a relationship and your nervous system is all over the place, then that makes it real easy to get triggered by little things that maybe normally don't make you so mad. But maybe your husband decides to leave, you know, something somewhere that you don't like it to be left and you lose it, or your kid, innocently does something and you blow up. And part of that is because you might not always realize, but when there's a lot of stress going on, your body processes it and you can react that way. So knowing if that's happening for you, that just be gentle on yourself. right? These are unprecedented times and no one's experienced anything like this before. So be gentle with yourself and do your best to take care of yourself and really nourish your own nervous system, not depending on your partner to be the one to do that for you, because they're probably in just as a stressed out state as you are, and they may not have the capacity to hold you through your upset. Granted, you want to try to hold space for one another and to be supportive, but at the same time, if it's unavailable, then it's unavailable. And so you need to be taking care of yourself. I actually did a training on this called How to Nourish Your Nervous System. You know, it's basically just around resourcing tools and learning how to reset your system so that you can kind of stay in this window of tolerance when it's chaotic. So I'll put a link to that you can check out. They're very short little videos. The first one's 20 minutes and it really just walks you through the basics. So you can know that for yourself. And when you have things come up, that you can try to take a moment to ground yourself, to regulate a little before you go into a conversation or an argument with your partner so that things don't get out of hand quickly. So that'll be the first thing, taking care of yourself. And the second thing is, learning what you need, right? As you move into this time together, really getting clear on what is it that you need boundaries wise. If you're both working from home, where is your workspace going to be? Where is your kids' workspace going to be? Where's your partner's workspace going to be? So everyone has a defined area. And also creating separate times, maybe, if you need. Like, I know for us, my husband's a super loud talker, so we've had to really communicate about when I'll be teaching and when he's going to be on a call or when he's leading a webinar so that we can coordinate around that. So if I'm teaching a class, I know that he's not going to interrupt or be like rah, 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 walking by, totally interrupting a deep dive of something if I'm taking a client through, or holding a class of 200 people on Wednesdays like I do. So we have to communicate those things. So I would say right now, if maybe there's a couple of things that you need, and writing those down. Maybe you need 30 minutes of alone time in the afternoon somehow, however that happens. Maybe that means you lock yourself in the bathroom. Maybe that means your partner takes the kids out. Maybe that means, during all this, you need to make time for yourself and alone time as well. Because I love the quote around having space in your togetherness. Because yes, while we are stuck together, even if you're in a small space, you can go to the bathroom. My teacher Layla jokes that when she and her boyfriend first started her business, they had a small studio in New York City without doors or anything. So she would go and put pillows in the bathtub and close the shower curtain and hang out in there for her alone time. So you can make it happen no matter what your space is, and know that that's really key. So when you are communicating your boundaries with one another, keeping in mind, what do you need from me and what can I offer you, right? So it's two ways. You want to ask for what you need, and you also want to be attentive to what they need as well, and work together. You're going to have to make some compromises. You might not get everything your way, but you'll hopefully have a better opportunity to be on the same page. The other thing is, when you're creating these boundaried spaces, be careful of interrupting. And one thing that I know a lot is when there's a lot of stress, maybe you read something, or maybe you have something happen in your business, or maybe the kid did something and you want to run and tell your partner what happened or ask them a question. Or they might do that to you and it might drive you crazy. And I think a really good thing to get in the habit of, especially now when we're all stuck together, is asking the other person if they have time. Do you have a minute to let me just vent about something? Or do you have a minute? I'm feeling emotional and I need to be comforted. And let them say if they have the capacity or not, versus just jumping on in and being like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, I don't know what we're going to do. Because they might not be in a place to handle that. And then that's going to kick them into high gear. And then it's going to be, you're both like, right? Because when we are out of our window of tolerance, here's what happens. And I love this little simple illustration of the brain from Dan Siegel. He wrote a lot of books around how the brain works, and one especially for children. So this is from The Whole Brain Child, which is a great book. But basically, you have your brainstem going in, you have your primal brain, then your limbic system, emotional brain, and the mid prefrontal cortex, which is where all the thinking happens and the decision making. And when you are out of your window of tolerance, if something has triggered you, if you've lost it, if you're upset, then you're like, and this part that has been wired to keep you safe from lions is going to attack or freeze or fawn or whatever it does. And everybody has a different way to react. Everyone has a different way their nervous system automatically does when they get upset. But that's what will happen. You'll be like, ah! And when you're up here, when you've blown your lid, there's zero capacity for that higher level thinking. So when you do that, you can even look at your hand and take 4 deep breaths and just start to bring your brain back online, because that's literally what it will do. As you look at your hand and you bring those parts back, you're like, okay, getting a little bit of resource, getting a little capacity, and then you can maybe answer the question or come back to the challenge with a little more presence and a little more patience. That's a little tip, a little trick, because when you are interrupted or when you're not in a space to hold whatever your partner has, it's really easy to get triggered and have an argument, or things kind of spiral from there. So you might think, okay, well, I've got my boundaries and I kind of know what I need. So how do I talk about this? Like, how do we have these conversations in a way that doesn't lead to an argument? And first of all, what I want you to realize again is, if you are having more arguments, try to look at your partner, try to realize that they are also going through something stressful. And again, everyone has different ways of handling things, but looking at them as, okay, knowing this is not really who they are, this is a part of them that's triggered. This is their angry 15-year-old, or this is their, whoever it is that comes out when they're not their best selves. Just as it is for you when you get triggered, how your best self might not come out, right? So when you can kind of view that and realize, okay, this isn't really who they are at a soul level, this is just because they're triggered, it can help you be a little more patient with their response. And I know, we're all human, we're going to have our moments. So you can just do your best. So if you want to have these conversations, I'll share a few tips around that. How you communicate during these high stress times so you can each be heard. And so the first thing, like I said before, is making sure that the other person has the capacity, right? Do you have a minute to talk about this? And if they're not, then say, okay, we really need to talk about how we're going to take care of the finances, or we really need to figure out our schedule, or whatever the conversation is. And if they can't do it then say, okay, well, let's find a time. And the other person agrees to a time where you'll both show up for the conversation. So, and again, the key with this is try to listen when the other person's talking. Oftentimes we're just thinking about what we want to say or what the other person is going to say. So it's not always so easy to let them talk. So really, when you're having these discussions, just let the other person talk when they're talking, and hold your comments until they're done. So try not to interrupt, because when you interrupt, that really breaks the trust between each other when you interrupt a lot. So it takes practice, because it's very easy to sometimes get triggered by what your partner says. So just know that you can get better over time as you practice. Sometimes I even have to bite my lips, literally, so I don't say something that I'm going to regret. And then you want to start with something positive. Start with something you appreciate about them. So maybe you really appreciate that they went to the grocery store. I think in these times, I laugh, Mark he has to go to work, because he works at Denver Health. So he has to go and see patients a couple days, and he's already out and about. So he's decided that he's just going to go to the store when he's out. And I do feel a lot of gratitude for that, because it reminds me of, like, he's really going out into the scary world and caring for our needs as a family, which feels really good. So that could be something that I would share with him. I really appreciate how you are going to the grocery store, right? Or maybe they're really great with helping out with the kids, or maybe they, are always good about unloading the dishwasher, or maybe they cook, all these things. So whatever they do, really first share that, something you really appreciate about them, an example of something and make sure it's genuine, because they'll know if it's not genuine, right? So make sure it's something that you genuinely love and appreciate about the person. And then you're going to see, I have a little interruption right now. What are you doing?
I'm hiding here.
Okay. Hide and seek. So, yes, so make sure it's genuine, because if it's not, they'll know, right? And then you want to clearly state what you need, and the why behind it. For example, I'm going to need to spend a lot of time in the evenings catching up on work after the kids go to bed. Now, I'm going to need you to be understanding. And it might not be as fun, because I know maybe we usually hang out at night, but I'm going to really need 2 hours, 3 nights a week to catch up on work. Maybe don't do that, honey. I'm going to need, she's adjusting my chair. I'm really going to need a few hours, and let them, so whatever it may be. Or I'm going to really need to have this conference call next week, there's 3 days I have conference call. I'm going to really need you to be in charge of the kids during that time so I don't get interrupted. And because if I get interrupted, then the call might not go well and I might lose my job, and we don't want that, right? Or whatever it is, but understanding why it's so important to you so that they can see the bigger picture and maybe even come up with some other solutions around how they can help and other ideas of how they could meet that need. So the why is really important, and be really clear and concrete in the action steps. So for example, if it seems obvious, be really clear. So for example, please don't interrupt me when I'm on a call. You might think that everyone knows what that means, but maybe you need to be more clear. For example, when I am on a call, I need you both to stay upstairs and not come down at all, right? Or when you bring the groceries in, then we need to put them, on the floor so we can clean them off before we put them in the cabinets. Or when you are bringing your laundry downstairs, I need you to put it in the laundry basket versus leaving it on the floor. Whatever it is, right? And be clear so they know exactly what you need. Can you give me 3 hours on Saturday so I can clean out the closet, right? Because I really can't stand how chaotic it is in there, and it stresses me out every time I walk in. And I really want to feel calm when I'm doing my day-to-day actions, because there's so much else that's unknown. At least if there's some calm in my space, then I can feel more present and patient with you guys. And they might think, okay, great, I can do that. Right. And then be open to what they have to say in return, right? Because this is a conversation. It's not a list of demands. Be willing to, just really listen to what they have to say and be open to whatever they are willing to do and what they can't. So go back and forth and really try to find a way you both can feel like you can meet this need. And the more you can do this, the more trust you're going to build, right? When you can talk about these deeper issues without being attacked, without starting an argument, the more you're going to be able to build trust and intimacy and honesty with one another. So it's a really big thing. And knowing that it's not always easy to have these conversations, and especially when you're in this kind of environment. So making sure to do those earlier tools I mentioned of calming yourself before you come into the conversation can be really supportive. And then finally, you want to still have fun, right? You want to still try to find pockets of fun and play, even when it feels challenging. And so some of the things are, maybe you two can get together and come up with some ideas of some creative date nights, right? Maybe taking turns so one person doesn't feel like they have all the onus of it. Is that, okay, maybe this week I'll come up with something fun for us to do. Next week you come up with something fun, and you can brainstorm of what those things might be, right? So maybe you are sending sexy texts to each other throughout the day, like you would if you were at work, even though you're in the same house. Maybe if there's a lot of kids around, you can be like, well, we're going to put on a movie, and a really loud movie, and meet me upstairs, So you can have a little playfulness and spontaneity maybe when you can squeeze that in. The other thing is, again, making sure to think about things you both enjoy and putting those on the list too. So as you're brainstorming some ideas, Mark and I both love music. So we will have a date night of watching a show we downloaded, or, streaming something. Or, we did a really fun thing, which I'll share. It's called showheroff.com. And it's a dancing class that you do online. My mom gave it to us for Christmas. And it is so fun. And we've been having a good time practicing those moves. And it's something to keep you moving. We also have been working out together in the mornings. I think the more you can keep a regular routine is important. So trying to go to bed at the same time, get up at the same times that you normally do, because as you are working with these rhythms, your circadian rhythm is such an important part of your health overall. So that's important to keep that one. And, granted, you can give some flexibility there, but it's good for your system and your immune system to keep things regular as you can. And then making sure you're exercising together. So that's another opportunity to get out stress, to get out frustration. And then you can also get creative, right? So I'm going to I'll share some tools around that too. I'm going to start sharing them more just on my page, because I have so many great date night ideas. I don't want to overwhelm you with too much. So I know that's kind of a lot. So as we go, I'm just curious if anyone has any questions so far. Maybe grab a sip of your drink. Just notice how things are feeling in your system, how things are feeling in your body as you digest it all. And I know I promised that I was going to take you through an exercise. And I wanted to do that because I think if you have your partner handy, great, ideally, because when you can do this together, the better. But if they're not here with you now, that's okay. You can just sit through this recording with them and maybe do it later. And the purpose of this is just to connect a little bit and to think about what you want to bring in during this chaotic time and what you don't want to bring in during this chaotic time. And ideally, when you find a space in your house that you both are comfortable, so maybe it's the bedroom, maybe it's a couch somewhere, and kind of create a space where you know you can always have these conversations. It's kind of a good idea to create a little sacred space in your house of some sort, or a nest, or whatever you want to call it. Not to be too cheesy, but I do believe strongly in rituals and creating sacred space because I think that speaks to different parts of our brain when we ritualize things. So, creating a little space and taking a moment to just look at one another, right? Look at one another. And as you do, think about all the things you want to bring in, all the things you want to bring into your relationship right now. So, spending a few minutes, you can take turns kind of offering that. So, I want to bring in safety. I want to bring in perfect health for our family. I want to bring in fun. I want to bring in sensuality. I want to bring in hot sex. I want to bring in whatever it is. So, taking a few minutes now, just take turns telling each other what you want to bring in or writing them down if your partner's not available right now, you can just write them down. Maybe you want to bring in harmony. Maybe you want to bring in ease. Maybe you want to bring in fun. Just one more minute of what you want to bring in. And you can just thank one another for sharing that. And now you're going to shift gears. And now I want you to share, taking turns, what you want to keep out during this time. So, as you're quarantined, what is it that you want to keep out of your relationship? Maybe you want to keep out arguing. Maybe you want to keep out resentment. Maybe you want to keep out fear, whatever it may be. Just taking a couple of minutes and going back and forth, each taking turns, sharing what you want to keep out. And if you can also write it down, just do this as a little journaling exercise if your partner's not present. And I'll give you a couple of minutes. If it feels good, you can even just like physically say what you want to throw out into your hand. Throw it out as you say it too. Sometimes that can feel good. Just another few moments. And when that feels complete, then you can think one another. And now the last part of this is you're just going to share a couple of things that you love about each other. So I'm going to give 1 minute for one person to share and 1 minute for the other person to share. So, partner A, you tell partner B some things you love, appreciate about them. And again, you can always just take this as a journaling exercise if they're not there. And when that feels complete, I'm sure you could go on and on, but we'll switch now. And partner B, you tell partner A some things you love, appreciate, or grateful for about them. And then bringing that to a completion, although I'm sure you can go on and on. We'll stop there for now. And just knowing you can always do this little reconnection exercise when you feel like you want to get on the same page. Because I think that's what often happens. We forget we're on the same page and that we both have shared goals and we want the same things. And so I think it's a really great little short connection exercise to take that time to connect, talk about what you want to bring in, talk about what you want to keep out, and what you love and appreciate about each other. And just to kind of recap, really, there's so many things that I can share, but I want to just keep it simple. And I think I'll do this again too. If there's specific points you want me to cover, or if maybe you have a specific challenge, you're welcome to ask a question, or you can post it in the Q&A now, and I can get to that because I wanted to keep it short and sweet. But if you have time, I can stay on a little bit more, and I would love to have some time for Q&A. It's now 5:30, so um, but with the Q&A, just feel free to ask away, or you can post in the chat. Or if you want to raise your hand, then I can also call on you. And if not, then I'll just recap quickly kind of what I was sharing the first thing, number one, making sure you're taking care of yourself. And you can go to amandatesta.com/safety for those resources on keeping your nervous system aligned, nourished, staying calm when it's chaotic. That's the first thing, taking care of yourself. The second is understanding what you need from each other, setting your boundaries. Right? What do you need? Tuning in deeply around that, and then sharing that with your partner and having them do the same for you. So you can really honor each other's boundaries, because often we'll have invisible boundaries that someone will cross and then we'll get triggered and lose it. So these are good things to talk about, especially now when when you're together a lot more than usual. And then I shared some tools on how to communicate this clearly and effectively, making sure you're both in the place of doing it, starting with something you love and appreciate, really explaining why it's important to you, being super crystal clear with what you need, and making it a conversation, really giving them an opportunity to share what they are capable of doing, and making it a two-way street. And then coming up with some fun date nights, taking turns, offering those to one another, and finally, doing some connection practices. And if you need help around that, I obviously have a lot of tools around that, as well as a new online course called Tantra for Lovers, which, if you want some fun ideas for date nights, that's definitely some good stuff there. And yeah, and thank you so much for tuning in. And feel free again to shoot me an email if you have additional questions. You can send them to me at amandatesta.com. And I will be happy to support you the best I can. And thank you very much for joining. Hope you all have a beautiful night and rest of your weekend. And as we close, I'll invite you just to think maybe one thing you really appreciated about your time tonight, or something you learned that might be supportive. I'm just kind of keeping that with you as you move on. Yay. Thank you all so much, and we will see you soon.